with Sheila and Teresa. Hi there, I'm Teresa.
Hi, I'm Sheila.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining Let's Talk Weddings with Teresa and Sheila. And I'm Sheila.
And I'm Teresa, but actually we have big news because today we're announcing a little rebrand and we're changing our name to Spill the Tea.
Spill the tea about weddings.
Yes, because we have lots of tea to spill, don't we?
Yeah. Always get a little gossip, tidbits, tips.
But I have to say, Sheila was criticised the other day because we were told, or she was told, that we're a little bit blunt and honest occasionally. So spill the tea seems a little bit more appropriate, don't you?
Yes, I think so, because we're opinionated. And I think that's what the listeners want to hear. I think they want to hear, like, an honest opinion.
They do, yes.
And you, macaron.
Just a macaron.
Yep. So we are going to be changing it with this podcast. And we have another special treat. We have somebody fantastic with us today. He's been a guest in our summer edition. And this is George with Be Captured. Say hello.
Hi, I'm George with Be Captured Photography. I'm one of the photographers and videographers for Be Captured Photography.
And he is a lot sweeter than Teresa and I.
I think he's probably still got opinions, but just a bit more refined than we are about sharing his opinions. But George, we really want you to share some opinions today about all things photography and what you wish couples might think about and know.
Okay, absolutely. Let's talk about some of the after ceremony considerations for specifically for photography. I mean, we could also talk about other things within that aspect, but just a little bit, so that the viewers and the people listening to the podcast have a little bit of a better idea of things that maybe they should consider. Not that they have to, but probably considerations for after the ceremony when it comes to pictures.
I have an idea. So for some brides that haven't been to many weddings that are listening, or those that are very early and have not got to their timeline yet. So you understand as brides that from the cocktail hour is also the time at the end of your reception and the hour that not just you enjoying some cocktails and food, but that is a photographer's hour to be with a couple and get all of, especially if they haven't had a first look, is their couple photos and the dream list of the couple to get all of their photography. So for those that didn't know, I mean, a lot of people think it's just all about the social hour, but technically the social hour is to entertain guests while you have an hour just dedicated with your couple. So explain to some of the listeners, like, what you've seen happen and what you would like to happen during that time.
Okay. So one of the things that we've seen happen, especially me, I've been shooting weddings since like 2007. And I've shot weddings on both coasts, both the East Coast and the West Coast. So both coasts actually have two different types of cocktail hours. Here on the East Coast, a lot of the cocktail hours are just that. They're normally 1 hour. If we're lucky, sometimes you'll have couples that do spread it out to like an hour and a half. But the biggest difference that we see is from the East Coast to the West Coast. A lot of the so-called cocktail hours on the West Coast are actually 2 hours. They actually have 2 hours, if not sometimes even 3 hours.
What? Oh.
Yes, I've photographed hours where the cocktail hour was 3 hours.
So we have that in the UK. So when my daughter gets married, her wedding will be at 2:00. And the reception and evening don't start until 5.
Really?
So the guests need to be entertained. There'll be an open bar, which is quite fabulous. But basically, they have all that time, and then the photographer has the freedom to be able to enjoy getting the photographs that they need to get, that they're required to get.
Yes, the big difference on the West Coast is a lot of couples tend to, even if it's done, some pictures are done at the actual receptions, they actually will pay to go to a different location to actually do their photos at like arboretums or like national parks, stuff like that, where it's within reason. Normally it's like a 15, 20-minute drive, but that's why they extend it. But the other thing is they want absolutely gorgeous pictures done of them, which is something that we don't necessarily see here on the East Coast. The East Coast is more of a traditional, people are still holding on to those traditional photography aspects, where the family, a lot of the couples want family pictures with their family. What the couple, sometimes we'd have to tell them is you have to take that into consideration when you're building your timeline, because if you're only allotting an hour, that hour will disappear like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, even though we do emphasize, to try to get more of group shots with, your larger family groups to maximize the amount of time, a lot of the times what we end up seeing is, it's almost like a conveyor belt. Then the aunts, the cousins, the uncles, and like what we tell couples is you also have to understand that, not everybody sometimes is where you're going to want them. So that slowly starts to eat up time when you're looking for a dad, when you're looking, because dad doesn't, dad's camera shy, doesn't want pictures. So he's going out to go get a drink. And then people are trying to hunt, dad. And sometimes people think like, that's cute, because it's like, oh, he's shy. But what you don't realize is that time is slowly, minutes add up to hours, and like I said, that hour will disappear very, very quickly. So one of the things that we normally try to recommend is to try to keep your shot list, with, a larger group rather than, individuals. So if you want, your moms and dads, try to do them as a group, both sets of parents together, because at the end of the day, are you really going to print,
No.
a single picture of just you and your mom, you and your dad, or, you and, your group, the groom's parents? Like, no, it's most of the times you're going to print something with both sets of parents on it. So why not?
Well, you joined your family.
Exactly.
So I think it's totally fine to have both sides of the family together.
Which I will tell you a story, since you guys did want me to spill the tea. I did have one bride one time, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, when I did bring that up to her, and she said that the reason she wanted those is in the event that she got a divorce. She wanted pictures.
Well, she wouldn't want a picture of her in a dress.
I was thinking, why are you thinking that way?
She's practical. She would be my. I would be practical.
Before
To
you're
be honest with you, my best friend had individual photographs with her parents, and her mum actually very sadly passed away unexpectedly 2 years later. And the only photograph that she's got of her and her mum is on her wedding day. So I can understand why couples think about those things. And whilst, I've got family, because obviously back then, 30 odd years ago when we got married, things were a little bit different. So, but those photographs that I've now got with my parents, they're not here anymore.
Yeah.
So they might be looking at it from the perspective of, although it's not a family reunion, sometimes the only time we ever get dressed up together
absolutely.
It's wedding day. But I do think that,
Why couldn't they be done before?
and that's my point. I do think, I have to say, the photographs I have done of my daughter on her wedding day, of me doing the whole pretend dressing, getting her dressed, awful, absolutely hideous.
That's what everybody wants, isn't
And
it?
they're hideous. So they just were not particularly flattering photographs for either of us. So, they certainly wouldn't be printed. Whereas I think that afterwards, the photographs that we had done together were very nice. We were both finished and, excited. But I think that, I'm all in favour of a first look or a first touch and all of those things. So if couples do that, they can then have the time to get some of those portraits done before cocktail hour. But I'm also a big proponent of having cocktail hour extended to an hour and a half.
Well, I don't mind an hour and a half at all. Like, I really don't.
Something to do. Give them a snack. Give them a drink.
So that's what I was also going to say. I'm like, if you've never been to a California wedding, they have things for. Then that's the one thing that we also see. It's like the lack of creativity. I don't know if it's a East Coast, West Coast type deal.
I'm going to create one.
But the whole thing is they're very creative with their cocktail hours. They have a ton of things for the guests and fun things, which is one of the things I don't understand. Like, we don't necessarily see that here in North Carolina or the East Coast. A lot of it is just like, oh, they just can mingle and talk to each other. Whereas over there, the DJ, they will hire the DJ to do specific things. Like, one of the cutest things that we've seen, in California is where they play the couple bingo, where that gets everybody. So as everybody leaves the ceremony, they're handed a couple bingo cards, and then that's what the DJ will do. He has like a little wheel, and he's got different things like when was the first kiss, when was their first date. So it's introducing the couple to those guests that may only know them in passing that were invited, but it gets them to know. So that's a simple thing. Now, other things that the couples do is they may have like little games. Like we saw it where they had like little relay games for the guests that the DJ, kind of like, conducted and organized. And then, the winners would get like bottles of whiskey, or something of that kind to have the guests entertained. And you can definitely see, like, obviously, you know your own crowd. So if your crowd is a partier crowd or a crowd that's a little bit shy, the DJ can definitely get the crowd going, and it keeps them entertained. And believe it or not, the time does fly by, without anybody really being bored, because that's normally what we see. And what we hear is like, oh, the guests are bored. And it's just like, I know, because
There's not much.
Well, I mean, I've even seen guests leave.
I can tell you why.
Because they think, well, when's dinner and I'm hungry and I'm bored and I don't want. And the thing is, I mean, my worst nightmare is to have to talk to a bunch of strangers I've never met before. So imagine being a cocktail hour, especially if it's a dry one.
Yes.
And all you've got is some iced tea and you've got to talk to a stranger. I would hate it. So I can understand why couples keep it to an hour, because they think that people don't want it. But there is so many creative things, which then gives you the opportunity to be able to make good use of that time, so that you can go off and do those family portraits, which I kind of think are a bit important, but not necessarily of second cousins once removed, because who cares? But I mean, really, who cares? But I mean, we had a couple who were photographed at our venue, and they loved the spaces so much that they literally wanted to have photographs at every single spot.
Exactly.
And then that took over an hour and a half to do anyway, without having family photos. So you're right. I mean, you've really got to give your couples
yes,
guests.
Definitely, especially at your venue. Like, there's so many gorgeous places to take pictures. But what we often sometimes end up seeing is the family pictures go a little bit longer, especially if they're super large groups or very big families, because that's normally where we see the issues. People aren't where they're supposed to be. People, wander away. Then you're looking for people. And like I mentioned, I'm like, slowly but surely, most couples don't realize how much time that's really eating. We know exactly, because all of the pictures that we take are timestamped. So you can see when there was a lull where we were waiting for somebody, to show up. So that's normally where we see the time being eaten up, and then lo and behold, it cuts into the time that they probably really hired us for, was to take gorgeous portraits of them. So that is, one of the considerations that a lot of the times we do bring up. It is taken, I'm assuming, into consideration, but then at the end of the day, they don't realize just how much, large number of family portraits are going to take. And your hour just disappeared, because in reality, we don't really have an hour with them.
No.
You figure right after the ceremony, people are going to be congratulating them. So we have to try to herd them away and get people to stop, doing that, to get just the family shots. Then after that, family members do want to stay and say, oh, you look so pretty, you look so, so cute. So that takes away, a little bit of time. Then the other aspect is we have to get them back to get ready for, for the grand entrance. So in reality, we don't actually have an hour with them. Like, that hour is very shortly cut. And then the other thing that we've been seeing, like I've mentioned to both of you, beautiful ladies, is the larger the wedding party, the more possibility you open for drama.
Yeah.
You may already have a groom that's already taking off his coat, already 6 beers in, by the time, we start, trying to take their pictures. People just being difficult, like, oh, well, I don't really like my picture being taken. But then you probably shouldn't have, volunteered to be, a best man.
Right.
Oh, well, I need to go touch up my makeup. Like, girl, sorry, bridesmaid, but it's not about you. Like, so those little things, like I said, add up and eat up time that we have, slotted with the couple.
And then I guess you get the couples, when you present them their album, disappointed because they've only got
a few pictures.
Oh, they know the
pictures of that.
And then they say, oh, I thought we were going to get X, Y, and Z. And you've got to defend yourself, which then gives your reputation a bit of a hammering, because you've done the best you absolutely can. And I think that that's something that probably we can all talk to during their planning process.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that they necessarily listen, but we can all then defend ourselves and say, well, we did point that out to you. We did share that information,
and
and you can talk to them about having an extended cocktail hour. getting creative with
I'm
ideas of
thinking about family photos too, because now I do think it's important with your mom and dad and your grandparents. And I do think that if those are important to them, if they would work with their planner and their photographer, then we could say, okay, then let's have you ready at 11 a.m. and you can do your family photos with your mom and dad. And then by 12, you have your photos with your photographer. Like that can all easily be worked out. Easily.
Well,
And
but
then
I have
after,
to
it's not.
not all venues let you get in there at
Exactly.
9 o'clock. So if you have a venue that's a bit jitty about what time you can get in, they can't be ready by 11 because if
Right.
they've got hair and makeup girls coming and then saying, oh, well, we can't possibly get you all ready by then. So it is that whole collaboration with every single vendor being able to work together. But I'm sure that most venues, not all venues, but most venues could potentially either have the door open earlier for getting ready time, or they could charge an extra fee if they needed to, if they
For
needed
hours.
extended space, so that they can offer. I mean, we don't have that stipulation. If they want to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going to be, but they can be. So we have had a bride who wanted to be there at 5 a.m. That's fine. We'll unlock the barn and have it ready for you, but I'm not going to get difficult about what time you want to show up if you want to have photographs done early. But that is something, we're always banging on about communication.
Okay.
And that is that whole communication thing again, isn't it, really? That they've got to think about, you're not making it up.
Yeah.
The hour isn't an hour.
It's not an hour.
But it's not even the communication, it's the planning, you know. If the planning isn't there, like it's just you're going to, especially if you run into hiccups. I mean, we had a wedding at your venue, right? And something catastrophic happened with the groom, and I mean that in itself, because the groom had to leave, and he was gone for like 3 hours. In those 3 hours, that's when we were supposed to be doing all his pictures. So the planning has to be as meticulous as possible. But as far as like the consideration, so for after the ceremony, like that is one consideration we can do, is try to extend your cocktail hour a little bit longer, or like Sheila says, try to get those pictures, your family pictures, done before the ceremony.
I guess that then makes the decision as to whether they're going to do a first look with people.
Exactly.
Because if they don't get on board with the first look, they're going to say, no, we can't do
No,
pictures
we love
early."
the first looks. We
I
absolutely
think
love
we
first
all
looks.
love the first look as a vendor, don't we? Really?
Yeah, but I do love the first look. I do, but I also like the emotional moment behind the groom seeing her go down the aisle.
So I have a thought to that. I think that you can do both, in so much as if you have a bride who's wearing a veil or having a bouquet, you can do a first look with makeup and the dress and everything, and then to switch it up a little bit to go down the aisle, put the veil in, hold the bouquet, so that he gets a whole different feeling of arriving. And I absolutely guarantee that 90% of my grooms who have had a first look still cried when she's come down the aisle.
Oh,
The other way we've seen it, and I've only seen this in like California, but that's when the bride actually will do a first look, but she is in her party outfit. She makeup and everything is already done. Most of the outfits that I've seen are still white. They're very cute, very like little mini skirts type deal. But that's how they do their first look.
That's nice.
And then all she has to do is get out of that, and that's her outfit that she's going to wear for the after party, and then she gets into her wedding dress, so he sees her again in her wedding dress for the.
I like that.
But then you still won't be able to get the photographs with the family members if she's not in her wedding gown.
Well,
No,
but
so we have, because that's
She
still,
hasn't done a first look with everybody.
no, but she still. It's more of like well, we've had it 3 times. Where they do something similar, and they just want the pictures with their family members
Just
on the day of.
Right. Well, that's one thing I think is really cute. So if any brides are listening, you want to do something, I like that. I like that idea to where you get to see the look, but maybe not the dress at the moment. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and a lot of the things is the where brides are running into time issues. In all reality, it's the big bridal party. It's not,
I agree.
It's not a problem with the groom or the groomsman. They are the easiest to photograph and they are the easiest to get ready. I mean, I can go into a groomsman's suite if things have been pushed to left and right because of, something going on as far as like timeline, and it's very easy for them to shift. All they have to do is get into their outfits very, very quickly. And then even if, they have to wait even longer, all they do is just take them right back off.
They don't have meltdown.
No, they don't.
Like the bridal
So
suite.
the bridal,
They throw it on. And,
normally where we see the issues. A lot of the times it's mainly with hair and makeup because hair and makeup may take a little bit longer than anticipated because maybe the bridal party's very very big and you only have one or two hair and makeup artists, right? So the time that this is how we tell our brides, when we ask, we're like, how big is your bridal party? And they're like, oh, it's 6 and myself, so that's 7 people, right? So if you only have one hair and one makeup artist, it's going to take them at least a minimum of 1 hour per person.
Yep.
So you're talking about for 7 hours, somebody is sitting in the hair and makeup chair, right? So that's 7 hours already of your wedding where you're not going to get a picture of your entire bridal party. That's why a lot of the times, that's why I said it's like that's where we see the issues. So if you're going to have a larger bridal party, one of the things we suggest is having at least 2 hair and 2 makeup artists because in that way, your time is shrunk a lot more so that you do get those beautiful pictures. That's why you hired us, is because you want those pictures, because I'm pretty sure you want pictures of you and your girls, like at the English Country Barn, we could maximize and use all of that beautiful space to take beautiful pictures. But a lot of the times we're condensed very, very short on time because it is taking forever. And in order to get all of your bridal party in, you're always going to have somebody in the hair and makeup art.
So, boys, listen, 3.
Yeah.
The magic number, isn't it? 3.
3 is great. 3 really is great. Because, and that's what I was going to jump in on. Do you know after ceremony, and we take the wedding party out, the guests get excused to cocktail hour, and we bring the wedding party up. As soon as they get up there, the first thing, and it's always bridesmaids, they're like, oh, I'm going to go drink, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And they scatter off. They're gone. And it's like, no, we'll bring you a drink, but they got to go to the bathroom. We can't do that for them. And so they scatter off, and so then you're doing family, and they're overcompensating with how much free time they have, and then you're looking the wedding party. So as a bride that's listening to this, he's already telling you don't have an hour. I'm telling you're lucky if you've got 50 minutes. And for every time your wedding party or dad strolls off, you're losing your personal photo time. So you have to figure out, like, what's the most valuable. Yes, you can add a half hour. And another suggestion is if those types of portraits are very, very important to you, then same thing. You need to be ready an hour early, get some of the family done early, have a big family group photo, and then you have more time with the photographer. So I think all of those are good suggestions for them to get what they want.
Or even maybe have family photos after dinner, reception. You could do those. I know you have lots of ideas of different ways that you can get all your guest photos done. With the, what do you call it?
The Mission Impossible.
And
So share some of that, because I think they would like to hear those.
you could definitely add special ones with that.
Yeah.
Family photos with that.
And those, so one of the things that we do is we when we do the final time review, sometimes when we ask the couple, would you like pictures with you and all of your guests? Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say, it's not real important. But for those couples that do say like yes, one of the things that we suggest to them is doing like the Mission Impossible. And this is done with conjunction with the DJ. And a lot of the times we go and talk to the DJ and explain to them how kind of like this is all going to unfold, because sometimes the DJs themselves have never seen this. But one of the things that we do is we place the bride and groom in the middle of the dance floor. The DJ plays the Mission Impossible game and tries to hurry, tell the table, all the guests on the table, hey, like, before the song is done, we need to get everybody done. Which a lot of the times, obviously, depending on how large the party is, he'll just put the song on repeat. But it gets the couples guests to all participate, and it's kind of like something fun that they're looking forward to. Some tables you can tell are shy, and they just kind of like go up there and then just like, it's okay. Other couples get very creative. I've seen one guy literally slide
That's what
on the
that's what I was
floor,
waiting to tell you about one.
hand on his head, doing like some cool guy pose. So it's like your guests will have fun doing it.
Yeah.
And that way you get a nice picture of all of your guests. We've also done it where, we go around from table to table, but sometimes where that poses a little bit of an hindrance is, well, it depends on how tight the area is.
Right.
They can follow you, but now the bride and groom are kind of, having to struggle going from table to table. So that's why we normally recommend like the Mission Impossible, where they come in and the guests come to them rather than them having to go around trying to squeeze, in between tables if they have a large number,
One of my favorite ones that you've done at our venue was when you were upstairs and you took one of the brand
Love that.
party, and everybody was on.
So we have the capability of doing that, and we also have the capability of doing the drone shots like we did for one of your weddings there, and that shot was really, really cool because we got all of the crowd on 3 to go ahead and cheer for them, as the drone is shooting up and it's overlooking the entire guest party, cheering for the couple. So there's different ways of getting pictures, being creative. And then the other thing too is like we can, if a couple hires us for the entire day, I mean, we're there with them the entire day. We can do those family pictures and take our time after everybody kind of like settles down, which a lot of times we're taking pictures of people anyway and family members, because as they're leaving, I follow them around like the paparazzi. Like legitimately, I follow the couples around. Sometimes I feel bad because I'm like, are they tired of me? But it's like, that's what I'm doing anyway. So as people are leaving, then they also get another picture. So it's like, you can get those pictures, as the day progresses. The other thing too is, if you build into your timeline and you do want, you don't have enough time or people are going to leave. The other thing too that we always tell couples is like, we can take pictures at night. I mean, we have the capabilities of it, and every venue brings something different. Your venue, like I always suggest this to the couples. Let's go take pictures by the water fountain. Some people.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
The different lights.
yes. Some couples take us up on it, and the pictures look gorgeous. Other couples are just by that point. Some of them are just like, I just want to party with my friends. But we always ask them, because that is the other thing. Was like, we want to deliver like beautiful portraits to the client. But at the same time, we also need that time with them alone to do that. I mean, we could still take pictures of you partying and, having a good time.
They're kind of boring though, aren't they?
Like, well, it just depends. I mean, we've shot some weddings where we've gotten creative with some of the shots. But you also need to know your audience. If your audience and the people that are going to be attending your wedding are very shy, very reserved, you're probably not going to get very cool, reception, party pictures. If you know that they're going to go hard into the paint and they love to party, then that's where like the awesome video comes in, awesome pictures of them, goofing off, throwing the groom up in the air and the groom literally, that's like a shocked face of like, oh my God, they're going to kill me. Like that, you have to know your audience.
So talking of timelines, say you had a wedding of 120 guests. What's your ideal number of hours that you would shoot a wedding? I know quite often we see you there from beginning to end. Yeah. Is that your ideal, that you do full day?
So yes, in all honesty, the 12 hours of coverage is normally what we like to do to deliver everything, every aspect to the couple. This is how we explain it to the couple, because obviously our times are 4 hours, 8 hours, and 12 hours of coverage. So for 8 hours, we do tell them you can do it either or. So you can use the 8 hours if you want all your detail shots. If you want shots of the dress, shots of you getting ready, shots of, the groom and his groomsmen, having a good time and stuff. You can front load those 8 hours to give you that coverage. Now, mind you, after the ceremony, you may only get 1 or 2 hours, of ceremony coverage. But let's say if you are the opposite type of person, if you want, you don't care about any of the behind the scenes, you're like, it's not necessarily important to me. I don't really care about a picture of my dress. Then, okay, then you can backload those 8 hours. So we may do like an hour or 2 hours before the ceremony, but then we're there for, the speeches, if you're going to have games, if you're going to have, a possible send-off. And sometimes, a lot of the times we've been seeing mock send-offs being conducted. mainly because people are leaving a lot earlier. But that also depends, like I said, on your audience. Some people, if you have an older audience, or you have guests that just aren't very outgoing, very dancing type of guests, they tend to leave a little bit earlier. So you have to kind of understand. But to answer your question, at the 12 hours of coverage is normally what we would recommend. If not, then probably the 8 hours of coverage, but on the back end.
And this is a good podcast for people to understand. That's not just because you want to make more money by recommending a 12-hour. It's a fair answer, because if they want everything, then you can't possibly fit it.
Can't do it in 8 hours.
No, you
It
can't.
means I quite often see people on the social saying, I'm looking for this spender and I just need 4 hours. And honey, you're not going to get any near.
So we just had somebody reach out to us, and they wanted 4 hours of coverage. And normally what we tell people is like the 4 hours of coverage, we kind of like dedicate that more towards like elopements or very small weddings. Micro weddings, where you're only going to have no more than like 40 guests, and you want the main focus to be you and your now future husband. But she reached out, and immediately once I started asking her questions, because she contacted us specifically saying like, I would really like the 4 hours of coverage. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, are you having a micro wedding? And she was like, no. She was like, I'm looking at around 150 guests. And it's just like, I don't think you're going to get everything. So as she started asking me, well, can we do this? Can we do that? She slowly, as I explained to her, because she wanted like the detail shots of her dress, like her bouquet. And I was like, okay, when are you going to get that done? Because then she started telling me also, when she was going to get ready, when her ceremony was going to be. I was like, by the time I arrive there, you're probably already going to be in your dress. So I can't get any pictures of, your dress, being hung up or, just, set up for it. So then she, okay. And then I asked her, I was like, how long is your ceremony? She was about 40 minutes. I was like, that's a pretty long ceremony. Because then she told me it's a religious ceremony. I was like, that makes sense. But now that's 40 minutes of your 4 hours, that, is getting eaten up by your ceremony.
Well, it's more
So yeah,
in your reality, because you're going to be ready as the guests are arriving, as the groom is down the aisle waiting for them to arrive. Now, probably 10 minutes beforehand, and then by the time they've done the dip, and walk back up the aisle, there's probably a whole hour is taken up. So I do think that couples need to probably think bigger than their anticipation.
Right.
Like bartenders, when they think they only need a 4-hour service and they're not going to possibly get.
I think minimum 5.
And I just think with photography, it's just a reasonable thing for them to sort of backpedal for where they want the photographer to end, to see how many hours it's going to take for them to utilize that time wisely, really.
I don't know if I've ever seen a 6-hour package like be able to deliver results. It's literally been 30 minutes before the ceremony into reception. Then they start dancing, maybe 2 songs, and they're gone.
So we have actually done it. We have, because we used to offer 6 hours a couple of years ago. So we did offer it, and we have had weddings where we have been able to cram everything, but they already had that understanding to front load everything. So they did everything like literally like back to back to back to back, which worked in their favor for their pictures, but they did everything like not convenient. So you're talking about they did their grand entrance, they did their first dances, they did the speeches, and then they did the cake cutting.
Right.
Where nobody even had food.
Right. And I understand that.
But isn't it really this wedding day is
Push it through. Right.
It's supposed to be a documentation of your wedding.
Right.
It's all the thing, okay, we've got to be here and having everything. I know a timeline's important, but at the same time, having a little bit more breathing space in that timeline is kind of important, isn't it, really? Because otherwise, it's not just stressful for you, but
you're missing the moment, like the moment of the whole wedding.
That's one of the reasons why we try to stay away from shot list. I know a lot of photographers use the shot list, but one of the reasons why we kind of tell couples that don't, we still will if the couple says like we want a shot list, for that it's your day, like we'll do the shot list. Where we see the issues with the shot list is if you have hiccups, then we feel like the couples are then trying to rush everything.
Well, the expectations aren't going to be met.
Well, the thing is, we see them rushing to try to get the shots that they wanted in the shot list. So, I mean, like I said, it's like if everything goes well, which we all know does not go, 100%, the way it's supposed to on a wedding day. And that's why a lot of the times we tell couples that when we send them, like ideas for timelines, we'll tell them a certain time. But what they sometimes the planner, though, then will send back their timeline, and they had taken away all the buffer time that the whole reason we had told them certain things was because we're buffering in, certain things that possibly could.
I've never done. I don't think so. Do I do that?
Well, you see, that's where it comes from vast experience and knowledge.
Right. Because
If you've had that experience, you already know that you're going to take longer than we might think, oh, do 10 photographs.
I'll give you an example, right? So the first look with like the dads, a lot of the times, we've seen where, coordinators will be like, oh, 5 minutes or 10 minutes for that. And it's like, you do realize that this is the first time this man is looking at his daughter for the first time, right? So we've seen it where sometimes the dad gets emotional and you can tell he wants to hold her, wants to talk to her, wants to congratulate her, or they have gifts to exchange. If, because we see it, because then the coordinator will come by and like, yeah, those 10 minutes went like that.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're rushing like, oh, we need to get her back. So that moment, that sincerity, that love, that was being exchanged has to get cut short because.
Good point. I'm glad you said it just like that.
Important because the whole point of the wedding is the love and the emotion and the feeling.
So that's why a lot of the times when we'll say when somebody asks, well, how much time should we allot for the first look with my dad? 30 minutes. Yeah, and sometimes planners are like 30 minutes is too long.
No.
Obviously you've never actually seen an emotional wedding then, because that's that. I mean, okay, if they're not emotional, great. Then
you got extra time.
That extra time, to do whatever it is that you want. But a lot of the times that is what we see is like if a father and a daughter get emotional or they have gifts to exchange, and you're only allotting them 10 to 5 minutes for that portion, it cuts it short. The other thing too is with us is because we also take the video. We're doing video coverage. A lot of times, especially like wedding planners that have never worked with videographers, which a lot of wedding planners say that they have, but it may have been like onesies and twosies. They don't realize that you need more time now for both photography and videography because it's two completely different genres.
Agree.
That capture. So you need to maximize the amount of time, and then where you also kind of run into issues because we've also probably been photographers for weddings or videographers for weddings, and I can tell you right now, we can tell when either a photographer has worked with videographers and when they haven't, or when a videographer has worked with photographers and he hasn't.
Well, now, and this is one thing that I take it just as serious as my relationship with a couple is photography with the couple. So when I do a wedding or a planning timeline, if I know that you're contracted for 12 hours and you're there 11 to 11, then I want that bride ready 11:30 to 12 o'clock. And this is my thought process. And 11:30 is great. Is so when you come in, you can do your detail shots, you can get oriented, you can put some of your equipment out, and then you're ready to go into the bridal suite to get touch-up of makeup or hair or mom dresser. So my thought is at least 2 hours before the ceremony, I want everything inside and out, decorated, done, flowers. And then on my timeline, I have what time the reception and ceremony will be ready. That time from the time you arrive in your 12 plus whatever time schedule is if I don't have anything allotted on my timeline, like it doesn't start until ceremony, that is yours. I do not micromanage what time you're doing a first look, how long you're doing a first look for, where you're taking her. She can be on a bike going across a garden field, and I'm like all for it. As long as I make sure that bride knows you need to be ready for the photographer here, And every vendor knows that I have expectations for photography availability, reception, and ceremony here. They paid you for a service like they paid me a service. And so if a planner is listening to this podcast and maybe you're new into timeline, you've got to respect that, because that outside of venue, photography typically comes in second on expense. Well, and food and bartender. But we'll say photography. So, you know, a videographer and photographer is one of the top 3 expenses of a wedding. And planners do need to respect that you have your own timeline and your own listing for that agent. Now, do I want you to adhere to my timeline? Absolutely. But I need to give you the respect for your creative freedom and your contract with that couple.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you said, hey, we have something special planned, and we've had this situation before, whether it's going to be whiskey shots or cigar bars, whatever it might be, say we're going to be downstairs for 30 minutes. I'm like, great. As long as I know that's where groomsmen are, I'm, in case of emergency.
Well, I've just written to my daughter's photographer, actually, because we have a surprise for her wedding. And I needed the photographer to know so that he could build it into his timeline. Because I thought he's going to have an idea of what he's doing for his own, even if he doesn't have a shot list, and I don't even know. I thought he's going to need to know that this is going to take probably 40 minutes of his day. So whatever you've got.
Oh, yeah. 40 minutes is a long time. Definitely. Yeah.
So I thought that he needed to know. So I can tell everybody what it is now, though, because she knows, because Ian couldn't hold the secret any longer. So for my daughter's wedding, and we might have this podcast out by then, she's having Chitty Chitty Bang Bang as her to drive in and out.
Oh,
Yes, when Ian is allowed to drive it, he's driving her in. So Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was her most favourite show when she was a little girl. And she knows the whole script of every single person.
Oh.
So we were going to keep it as a complete surprise. And I thought, well, that will be tears everywhere. Then Ian couldn't keep it a secret any longer. So he told her when she came to visit last week. So, but I did have to tell the photographer, because I thought he's going to be really upset with me if he doesn't know.
Well, I think there should never be. And this comes from moms or dads or mother of the groom. Like, if there's something you want to incorporate, then reach out to that photographer one-on-one, even if it is a surprise. Because I would think most of them are going to be willing to do, if there's something special, they're going to want to be a part of it. But you can't free it the day up.
Yeah.
Because they literally, just like mine, that's like tick, tick, tick on, I've got everything scheduled out. When things get thrown in, it's not just me. It's also going to be, if there's something like you're supposed to have tables set up at a certain time, or you have photos planned, or I have cake arriving, it does affect everyone. So that respect of family or someone that wants to add it in, don't wait the day of.
Well, yeah. And if somebody's listening to this right now, and they're a bride, and they're like, oh, well, I can get a lot done in 1 hour, right? And they've been listening to this. We've been talking for 48 minutes already.
Yeah.
So that's how fast time will actually go.
So we would have just cut off all the cousins. And we're going to actually end up right on that conversation. That is a good time frame. 48 minutes. They would have that's all they would have had, a cocktail hour.
Yeah, that's it. So
That's it.
good.
So that might even give you a reason to re-listen to this podcast, because you'll find out that it really does go quickly. And everybody wants the best for you and all the photos that you want. But just think about, having it all is just going to create a stressful environment. Might not be worth it.
Just book longer hours.
Yeah. And we're here to spill the tea now. So make sure you share and follow. Thank you. Thanks.